Southern Indiana head coach Stan Gerard, this season with the Screaming Eagles. Coach, just give us your general thoughts, then we'll go into some questions.
Excited about basketball season, of course. Coming off a rough season last year, I'm just excited to push the reset button. 11 new guys, 6 guys return. Been working very hard every day to, trying to, just put our base things in right now and just trying to give ourselves a chance to compete. Preseason polls came out. I don't get too concerned about the polls, early on. I know, some guys do that. That's great bulletin board material. But I told my friends this morning there's only one way to go, and that's up. The league is great. It's a great league, great players, great coaches. And, it's early, but, I love the way our team is trending with our culture, with the things we trying to get done on a daily basis in practice. We have some guys that can do some things a little bit different than last year. I think we'll be somewhat different in a lot of different areas. I think the biggest thing for me is just being competitive night in and night out to give ourselves a chance to win. I feel like we shoot the ball better than a year ago. I think we play harder than a year ago. And, but at the same time, you got to go out and play the game. And that's what we're excited about right now. It's just the opportunity to move on to the next step of, getting out there under the whistle in front of fans and putting everything that we've done thus far out there so we can try and get better and compete for an OVC championship.
Thanks, Coach. If you have a question for Coach, let me know down in the chat and I'll just call on you and then you can unmute yourself and ask away. Where do you think the biggest improvement your team has made from the beginning of practice to right now?
I think our guard play, that was a huge concern coming into the season. I know last year at the conclusion of the season, we discussed the guard play because I feel like that, if you have great guards, especially in this league, you have a chance. And we bought some guys in that I feel like that they're very dynamic, that can play both sides of the basketball. They compete. And, from day one, the defensive mindset has not changed since I started coaching years ago. And that's been our thing the whole year is just getting our, defensive base in and getting these guys to compete as if we're playing the championship every single day. The leadership is getting better. I know with so many new guys, you struggle in that area to get guys to buy into what you're trying to sell here. And I think guys, you had talked to me a minute, Jalen Randall, Damani Harris, and those guys have done a great job of making sure the new guys are on the same page as the coaches, and that's typically hard to do. But, these guys have held each other accountable. They're gym rats, of course, and I love walking in every day and seeing these guys in the gym working. I think, the biggest thing for me is just getting on the same page. It's hard with a lot of new guys. We spent countless hours in practice, countless hours, sitting down watching film together, and these guys have got to know each other off the court a little bit more to make sure they're not letting the guy next to them down.
We'll go to some questions. We got Brad Klein first. Brad, whatever you got as many as you want, feel free to ask away.
Thanks, Kyle. Hey, Coach, really appreciate your time. It was
Right.
the post-game press conference in the first round of the OVC tournament. You told me that you didn't want to remember this past season, but I know you do. So what, for you individually as a coach, what's the biggest takeaway from last year that you try to install for this year? How are you different now than you were this time last year?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we overscheduled last year. So that was one of the biggest takeaways. We had a very tough preseason schedule with the likes of the Dukes, the Michigan State, and St. Louis. Those were tough games. I feel like, after that second or third game when we lost and then we go on the road to Bucknell and LaSalle, it was going to be hard to recover. These guys are human. They felt a certain kind of way about the job we've done in those particular games. And now I know you got to be stronger minded, when you play those kind of games, but we struggled to overcome the early scheduling that we had last year. So this year I'm not saying we made the schedule easier, but we didn't schedule all Power 5 opponents. But the biggest takeaway for me, again, is just getting guys that want to be here, that are going to come to work every single day. We haven't had too many instances in practice where we felt like our guys were not coming to work. They understand the task at hand. They understand what we did last year and where we're trying to go. And we always tell those guys, the bus is going to move with or without you, and if you're not on that bus, you're probably not going to play. And I think our guys took that wholeheartedly. And again, they come to work every single day and trying to get better to give ourselves a chance to compete for a championship.
It's largely a new roster. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's year 17 for you as a head coach between D2 and D1. Is there anything unique about this year's group that maybe you haven't had a whole lot of or didn't have at all in certain regards from years prior, your past teams?
I think we're more athletic than a year ago. I know we had some guys that were pretty dynamic in that aspect, but we have a number of guys that are pretty decent athletes, pretty decent athletes rather. And we have 6'4" guys that can play the point guard. We have 6'4" guys that can play the stretch four. So these guys are playing in different positions. They're two-way players. And they're students of the game. These guys are doing a great job of coming in, sitting down with the coaching staff and watching practices, doing film sessions to try to better themselves or the team. And they're willing defenders. I think that's the biggest thing for me is trying to get these guys to be that. And, we put these guys in tough situations every day in practice to see if we can challenge these guys or push buttons to push them to a certain level. And, there's been days when it's not been great, but they're leveling up. They're pushing themselves and taking everything with a grain of salt and trying to get better every single day.
I do want to divert away from the 2024-2025 talk just for a moment because no, just not just about this season, but about the big picture, about this upcoming vote, the D1 Council in January in Nashville. They'll be voting about potentially whittling the transition period from 4 years down to 3, which would potentially make you guys postseason eligible next season. When you heard that news, what came to mind, and you think it's going to pass?
I prayed that it passes, but it was like Christmas in October when I heard the news. We sat down with John Marcall a couple of days ago, and we discussed the potential of this happening, and that could change USI in a lot of different ways because we'll have it'd be pretty much even playing field across the board, but whatever the rule or whatever they decide to pass, rather, we got to live with it. We knew the rule coming into the situation, and I support it if it passes. I also support it if it doesn't pass. But I'm excited about January because that can mean a new life for us because we are in that period where we cannot compete in the postseason, and I want to give ourselves a chance to do that. And I think if this passes, it has opened up another can of worms for us in terms of recruiting.
I don't want to hog up the mic. So
no, Brad, keep going. If anybody else has questions, let me know down in the chat. Until I cut you off, you can keep going, Brad.
Okay, sounds good. Coach, going back to this year's roster, you mentioned that the guard play is extremely improved from last year, but it also seems like the young man that we're going to hear from, Jalen Randall, is going to stick out, and he's kind of a guard-forward combo. What does he bring to this year's team that maybe you didn't have a whole lot of last season?
Well, one, he brings experience at this level. Transferring, the D1 transfer coming into the program, and they're always good to have on your roster, especially with the junior college guys we have and the freshmen that we have on this roster, plus the return guys. So he brings some experience from this level to the table. He brings grit and toughness. Detroit. When you think about Detroit, hate to say the Lions, but you think of toughness, hard hat type of guys, and he brings that every day. But his ability to play on both sides of the basketball is very intriguing. He guards. He can pick up 94 feet. Pretty good around the rim. Gets to the basket very well. And a great leader. I love the fact that he's not afraid to, hold guys accountable when they're not working as hard as he does. And that's hard to do. When you are a guy that's always holding guys accountable and pushing these guys, you got to do it yourself. And he's a lead by example guy. He's not just all talk, but he's a lead by example guy. And you can't have enough of those guys on the team. We had a guy come in and talk to our team yesterday about warriors. We just need one warrior on the team to lead, and I think we got a couple of warriors, but this young man you're going to talk to in a little while, he's the ultimate warrior, and we're fortunate to have him on the roster.
Obviously, a lot of turnover, so new personnel begs the question about scheme. Switching 5 ways last year, heavy pick and roll. Expect the same from this year's team and this year's strategy?
Well, it depends on the team. Depends on the day. We're experimenting a lot. We're experimenting with a lot of different things. We're looking at switching. We're looking at not switching. So I think it's going to be, a game by game thing. But I think with this group of guys, we're able to make adjustments on the fly and take it to the court. So I can't say if we're going to be a consistent team doing this and that. Each game you're going to game plan differently, depending on the opponent, and you go from there. But I love our versatility to be able to do those things.
No, that's great. And last year, you had Nick Kittle start 14 times for you as your center, which I think is something going into last season. I don't think many people expected, but he played pretty well. Season cut short against Little Rock with that broken bone in his foot. Now he's back, but still kind of trying to work his way back to full strength. What do you expect his role on this team to look like in 2024, 2025?
Well, he's got to pick up where he left off at last year and build on that. I feel like he did bring some toughness in the post for us, strong physical play. But he's kind of behind the 8 ball right now with his injury. He's still, trying to get himself back to 100%. And my goal with Nick is to, have him back by league play, if not a couple weeks prior to that. But we had some other guys in the middle. Steven, of course, from VMI. Alex transferred in as well, to 7-footer. And then Jaden Scheider, we got some guys inside that can, come in and give us a different look, if Nick is not doing his job. But we expect Nick to come back. And once he's back, we expect Nick to come back, 100% ready to roll and be able to be productive for this basketball team.
Going over to one of the guards, I think the plan all along was to redshirt him, but Josiah Dunham, you have a decision on him?
Not yet. This kid's going to make you play him, in practice the past couple of days. He's been, one of our toughest guys, diving on the floor, just taking everything in as he was a sponge, from our older guys. But he brings some toughness to this ball club. He's a 94 feet type of guy that can pick up, shoots the ball pretty well. But, no plans yet. We just got to see how the chips fall. But he's open either way. But we got to sit down at some point and make that decision in the next few weeks.
Taking a step back and looking at the league, with 2 years under your belt in the OVC, I'll ask you, what does it take to win in the Ohio Valley Conference?
Guard play, discipline. I always say to win the league, you have to be a few things. You have to be healthy, number one. You gotta be lucky, and you gotta be pretty good, and that's what the teams last year, like Little Rock and Moorhead, they stayed healthy. They had a great chemistry, and that's one thing we didn't have last year, so we have to get our chemistry in place to give ourselves a chance to win. We talk the word, we always say the word trust in practice, trust in the process, trusting the coaches, but trusting your teammates, and understand there's going to be some nights when, you're not going to make the ball. You're not going to make shots, rather. But your defense has got to travel. But you got to trust that, on those nights when you're not making shots, you got to find other ways to impact the ball game. And so that's been one of our other biggest things in practice that we're trying to instill in our guys, to just stay the course and trust that you are going to have a tough night offensively, but you still got to play the game and impact in other ways.
The preseason poll tells us what the vote was between the coaches and the communications professionals within these schools, but how do you evaluate the league with a lot of turnover at the top? Moorhead losing their coach, UT Martin the same. Yeah, Little Rock stays pretty much intact, but when you look up and down the league, I mean, what would your quote unquote individual preseason poll look like, and who's supposed to be there at the end of the year?
It's about right where it should be. I don't, like I said a second ago, Brad, I don't get too hung up into the preseason poll. Whether we're number 1 or number 9, you don't get the trophy to the end of the year. You know what I mean? So I think we take that poll and we stick it in the locker room for motivation, and that's great bulletin board material. But there's been days where we practice like the number 9 team or 8 team that we are, but there's also been days when we practice like we're the number 1 team in the league. So it's a process. Over time, you hope to get better as you get closer to league play with your non-conference, and it's an open league. The OVC is a great league, and I'm very fortunate that we're in this league. It's not the first time I've been voted number 8, and probably not the last time. I've been doing this a long time. And I always say you take that, like I said, you put it in the locker room, and that's your motivation night in and night out, because we think we're better than that, but the professionals have voted, the coaches have voted, and it is what it is. We're not going to be too concerned about that. We're concerned about Southern Indiana, getting better every day to give ourselves a chance to win a championship.
Just one more from me, Coach. I really appreciate the time.
Hey, ask away, man.
Western Illinois bringing in Kieran Powell. What's it going to be like to play him twice, once at home and once in Macomb, and with him transferring in the OVC?
Oh, just like any other game, we have the utmost respect for every program in this league, and a lot of love for Kieran. He was here a couple years, and he was at I met Kieran when I was at the University of Indianapolis as a head coach, and a fine young man. Of course, he went to Houston and then transferred to here to USI. And, I always say we did our part. I know he transferred out, and we support whatever decision these young men make, whether they're here or somewhere else. But we did our part. He earned his degree from USI, and now he's moved on to other things. And we wish him well, except against USI.
Coach, really appreciate the time. Good luck this season.
Thank you,
Coach. We'll go one more, and then we'll transition to Jalen. What is something an outsider should know about Southern Indiana, whether it's the university, the athletic department, your program, that maybe they don't know? Something to be proud of.
Well, our university, of course, it's a great place, and I'm biased because I was a student athlete here once. But it's a great place, a great community, a great fan base, and people here really get involved. We have a really nice facility, of course, with the new arena. As far as administration, just great people that, bleed the red, white, and blue here at USI. Our program, of course, we're trending. This is year 3 of the Division I era. We have a ton of history here at USI from our Division II days, national championship, and runner-ups and Elite Eights, a lot of championships, not just in men's basketball. We're fortunate enough here. I'm fortunate rather to be back where I played at. And every single day, I always say we're tracing greatness. You have Bruce Pearl, who is here, who's now at Auburn. Followed by Rick Curtis. And then I come in and try to keep the ball rolling here. And I think it's just a matter of time. That we're going to be very relevant at this level, but at the same time, it's a process, and we always say it's a marathon and not a sprint. And so it's just going to take a little while for us to get where we're going, where we want to go, get where we want to be rather. But I think this year you'll see a huge difference in our team last year because of the guys we brought in. And I'm excited about this group I have. I'm excited about where we are, but I'm also excited about where we're going. And I think we're going to do some great things here.
Coach, appreciate your time this morning. Best of luck to you and your team this season.
Thank you.